right? You're in a tough conversation, maybe a performance review, or even just talking to a difficult relative. And you realize, mid-sentence, that you are just giving away way too much information. That horrible sinking feeling in your stomach that you've over-explained, you've justified yourself, and you've just handed over this piece of vulnerability that you know is going to be used against you.
It is the absolute core paradox of modern influence. I mean, we are pushed constantly towards total disclosure. Social media, reality TV, all these corporate transparency rules. The world basically demands you put all your cards on the table, instantly. And yet, as the source material for this deep dive argues, and I think argues really forcefully, this mandatory clarity is the greatest weakness of our time.
So today we are unpacking excerpts from the book, The Art of Strategic Ambiguity by Waleed Azmi. And our mission really is to understand how calculated mystery doesn't just make you more interesting, but how it can profoundly rebuild authentic authority, your influence, and respect in all parts of your life.
Yeah, and what gives this book such unique gravitas is the author's background. Azmi isn't your typical soft skill guru, not at all. He's a former combat officer with a master's in military sciences, and he has an MBA in strategic management.
Wow, so military rigor meets executive agility.
Exactly. And that fusion means this is not a guide to manipulation. It's a proven playbook. It's for radical self-respect and for the strategic defense of your own intellectual and emotional space.
And that central thesis, it's laid out right in the prologue, and it's just the ultimate countercultural message. It says, total clarity is the greatest form of weakness in our time. Because, as Honoré de Balzac said centuries ago, mystery is the source of respect. People respect what they can't entirely comprehend. So you're just exhausted from trying to get respect by constantly explaining every single move you make. Well, you might just be emptying your private vault.
To illustrate this, the source opens with this really fascinating contrast between two employees. Same company, both vying for a promotion. Employee A was the talkative one. He shared everything about his life, his personal problems, his ambitious career dreams. And he justified every tiny decision. You know the type. Long emails, detailed pronouncements in every meeting.
Okay, I know that guy. So what about employee B?
Employee B was strategically silent. No one knew his plans, his next move, or, any details about his personal life. He'd answer questions concisely, confidently, but he always reserved the full explanation.
And the outcome here feels predictable, but I think the why is what's really critical.
Well, the talkative man, he just remained stagnant. He was always exposed, always vulnerable to criticism because his entire inner life, his whole strategy, it was all visible. The silent man, the one carrying that sort of unreadable aura, he was promoted to a leadership role where control and confidence are everything.
Right. So the book is basically saying you have to treat your strategy and your intentions like a confidential business plan.
Precisely. If you voluntarily share the full, unedited document with everyone, your competitors, your colleagues, even your spouse, you are literally handing them the ability to predict, to anticipate, to counter, and ultimately to undermine your movements. Total clarity just disarms your strategy before you even get to execute it.
Okay, that brings us to this first psychological law here. Mystery equals respect. But I have to challenge that for a second. I mean, in a culture that is obsessed with authenticity and vulnerability, doesn't holding back risk making you look, I don't know, cold or just secretive?
That's a really crucial distinction, but the source emphasizes that true respect is rooted in competence, not in total emotional access. People fundamentally do not respect those who reveal all their cards. Why? Because there's no intellectual challenge left. And then there's what the author calls the backfire effect. When you expose too many mundane details about your life or your inner struggles, the human mind, which just loves pattern recognition, starts finding faults. It starts seeing weaknesses.
So the more I talk, the more flaws you're going to spot in me.
Precisely. And conversely, when you know less about a competent person, your mind has to fill those cognitive gaps. And if that person demonstrates just basic strength and control, the mind almost invariably fills those blanks with positive imagery. You assume they're stronger, busier, or more strategic than they might actually be. Your silence is literally creating a positive, powerful narrative about you inside their heads.
So power isn't about shouting louder anymore. It's about who controls the flow of information.
If we look at the bigger picture, yeah, it's a radical shift in power dynamics. Historically, power was about visibility, right? The grand palace, the shouting decree. But now, in the age of constant data and instant sharing, where everything is accessible, true power lies in possessing the hidden truth. And choosing when and where to reveal it, it's the ultimate act of self-control in this totally overexposed world.
Okay, before we jump into the rules, we have to make this crucial distinction that the source really hammers home. We're talking about strategic ambiguity, not just, avoiding tough questions or being disorganized.
Yes, this is non-negotiable. Strategic ambiguity requires a plan. You have a clear objective, you have a deep understanding of the situation, and complete confidence. But you deliberately choose to withhold information or delay an answer. That is strength.
And the alternative.
The alternative is withdrawal or ignoring or just confusion. That means you're unclear because you genuinely don't know what you're doing. You're scared or you're just stalling without a plan. And that is perceived as profound weakness. True mystery requires complete mastery of the situation first.
Okay, so when you execute that choice, when you deliberately hold back information, you create what the author calls the psychological void, a blank canvas in the other person's mind.
And that void is, like you said, your most powerful tool. Let's take a practical workplace example. You're asked a complicated question by a senior manager. The weak response is to immediately try to answer with, 80% certainty and a bunch of rambling excuses.
Whereas the strong, ambiguous response would be something like, that requires a precise answer. I will have it for you on Tuesday at 2 p.m. I have the information, but I need time to synthesize the final proposal.
Perfect. You haven't withdrawn, you've engaged them, you've confirmed your confidence, but you are controlling the timeline. Now, what happens between Friday and Tuesday at 2 p.m.?
They're thinking about me.
Exactly. Your team, the manager, they're focused on you. They imagine the complexity of what you're doing. They respect your control. And they might even feel this productive tension, a healthy fear, because they know you are operating strategically.
And that time is working for you. Because as we said earlier, studies show people fill those blanks with about 70% positive imagery as long as you project confidence. You look like the strategist, not the scrambler.
So let's move to the practical application. The source gives us 3 golden rules for weaving this into our daily presence. Rule number 1 is about boundaries. Separate your public and private lives.
Okay, this is where I still struggle with that modern definition of authenticity. If I only share, say, 30% of my personal life hobbies, travel, general stuff, and 70% of my professional competence, how do I actually build genuine trust? Doesn't silence just look like emotional avoidance sometimes?
Well, the book argues that trust is built on reliability and competence, not on oversharing your deepest anxieties. The rule is very specific about what you must protect, your inner fears, any doubts you have about major decisions, deep personal problems, your mental state. Sharing these vulnerabilities, even in the name of honesty, is interpreted by the world as psychological instability or weakness. The message is simple. People should see your confidence and your capability. They don't need access to the messy process you used to get there. Keep the engine room door closed.
It really clarifies the distinction. So you're being authentic to yourself by knowing what you need to protect, not by broadcasting your internal state. Okay, let's look at rule 2. Don't explain every step. This has to be the hardest habit for people to break. We just feel this primal need to justify ourselves.
We do. We're conditioned to over-explain whenever we feel nervous or insecure. And the source is crystal clear on this. Explaining is inherently justifying, and justifying confirms the existence of self-doubt. You have to strive for pure, brief pronouncement.
The resignation scenario from the book is the perfect example of this. The weak person, writes a 3-page email detailing every single flaw of the old job, citing 6 reasons why they have to leave, basically trying to get validation.
And every single one of those sentences just diminishes their position. The strong response is simple. I will resign effective X date. I've accepted a new position that aligns with my long-term goals. Full stop. The power is in the brevity and the finality. The golden rule here is structural. The first, concise sentence of a decision carries 100% of its power. Every subsequent sentence you add to justify, it just dilutes that power.
But what about contexts like, pitching to the C-suite or writing a grant proposal, where meticulous detail is absolutely necessary? Where do you draw the line between justifying and just providing the necessary evidence?
The line is crossed when the evidence is presented defensively. If you're asked, why did you choose this strategy? You present the data, concisely. But if you're asked, are you sure this will work? And you launch into this nervous 5-minute monologue about every challenge you faced, that's justification. The smart leader presents evidence as fact, not as an apology.
Which flows perfectly into rule number 3. Speak less than you know.
This is the very definition of a true intellectual authority. The average person reveals, 80% of what they know? hoping to impress people. The strategic individual reveals only about 20%. And this immediately creates the powerful impression that they possess 5 times the knowledge they're actually articulating.
It makes you an unquantifiable opponent. If I'm in a debate with you and you only give me one bullet point, I have no idea if that's all you've got, or if you have 10 more points locked and loaded that will crush my argument if I push you.
Exactly. It forces others to respect your restraint. The person who constantly floods the zone with data, they give away their entire arsenal for cheap. But the leader who speaks for 30 seconds and then remains silent, they're perceived as having control over the information and the room.
All right, let's move to the tactical weapons.
Yeah.
The ultimate tool in this arsenal is tactical silence. This is where we learn how to make other people reveal themselves using nothing but a gap in the sound.
The negotiation story in the source is a masterclass in this. You have a buyer and a seller negotiating a property. The seller asks for $500,000. The buyer, who is practicing this, simply remains completely still and silent for 30 seconds. No nodding, no just focused attention.
I can feel the tension just thinking about that. 30 seconds of silence in a high-stakes conversation feels like an eternity.
It does. It creates this almost unbearable psychological pressure. And in the story, the seller, who can't bear the void, breaks the silence defensively and drops the price by $50,000. The buyer didn't have to say a single word. The silence did all the heavy lifting.
So how long should this silence be? I mean, it can't just be random or awkward.
No, the source provides actionable timing. 3 to 5 seconds is highly effective for a powerful short pause after a provocative statement or a question. If you need maximum leverage, you aim for a very strong medium silence of up to 10 seconds. The intention is key here.
Right.
You're not being rude. You are intentionally forcing the other party to feel that pressure and, critically, reveal their own hand by scrambling to fill the void you created.
Okay, tool number 2 is delaying the answer. Our default is always to provide an immediate response, right? We fear disappointing someone or looking slow.
An immediate answer is often impulsive, incomplete, or just plain wrong, precisely because it hasn't been fully synthesized. The power of a delayed answer is that it reframes your thoughtfulness as competence. So if you get a complex request, responding with, "That's an extremely important question, it deserves my full attention, let me analyze it and give you a comprehensive answer tomorrow," shows you take the matter seriously.
And this is especially valuable in moments of crisis or when you're being criticized. Hitting pause means you avoid that defensive emotional reaction that just kills your authority.
Absolutely. Wait until you have achieved total calm. A thoughtful, concise reply delivered 24 hours later is always, always exponentially stronger than an immediate defensive reactive one.
Finally, let's talk about tool number 3, strategic emergence. This is all about leveraging scarcity. Don't be available 24/7. That just kills prestige. It implies you have nothing better to do.
Right. If you're always the first to reply to every message, always instantly available on every platform, you are implicitly signaling a lack of high-level strategic engagement. Strategic delay means you reply to non-urgent messages after an hour or two. It demonstrates that your time is governed by your priorities, not the urgency of others.
And what about the physical application of this? The source suggests arriving slightly late to meetings, maybe minute 2 or 3. Why that specific timing? Why does it convey prestige?
It's subtle, but it's powerful nonverbal communication. Arriving 15 minutes early signals insecurity. You're waiting for the event. Arriving slightly late minute 2 or 3 conveys, "I am busy, I control my schedule, but I made time specifically for this." It subtly centers the conversation around your arrival, and it shows you value your own time highly. The leader who only emerges at crucial moments builds immense respect, because the team just assumes their time is occupied with the most important strategic work.
So what does this all mean for you? This whole deep dive really shows that maximizing your influence isn't about being loud or perpetually available. It's about leveraging self-control to build a presence based on gravitas and strategic selection. This whole process, which the source frames as a 14-day plan, requires you to fundamentally redefine what success looks like.
The key shift is realizing that ambiguity is high strategic intelligence. It's not ignorance. You have to commit to the idea that the one who talks the most usually loses the negotiation. They sacrifice their leverage. And always remember, a strong decision is made and fully vetted behind the scenes, and then it's announced with absolute confidence and radical brevity.
Just think about the most legendary figures whose reputations outlive them, whether it's in business, history, politics, Steve Jobs, Napoleon, Cleopatra. They weren't just powerful, they were unreadable. Their legend is completely tied to their ability to keep crucial secrets.
And if the people whose legends survive were masters of strategic mystery, this raises a vital question for you. In your own life, what part of yourself must you protect and withhold to build your own lasting impact and influence? I challenge you today to start by practicing the ultimate tool, the silence test. In your next 3 interactions where someone pressures you for an answer, be deliberately silent for 5 full seconds. Observe how they scramble to fill the void, and recognize that in that uncomfortable silence, your power has just fundamentally shifted.